Didn't think at the time. There was that sort of feeling in the house of happiness, you know what I mean? Always, when my father was there, and even when he was in the army, we had quite calm, You could feel that there was a sort of Christian attitude in the house. About my parents, first of all, my parents were Christians. When I was brought up in a Christian home, from I was born. I knew that, but as I say, how I knew when I started to come to have a bit of sense, I knew that they were Christians, but they also, in the old days, it's not so much now, the old days, you didn't have television, but you didn't have the radio on the Sunday. You didn't, and even in our street, I lived in a street called Spurmount Street in Belfast. Children weren't out playing in the street, even though you didn't know whether they were Christians or not. But you sort of was quiet. And another thing, I'm sure you knew about it, the swings and the roundabouts, they were all chained up, on a Sunday. So this is Sunday. But even I would keep Sunday now. And I know, so I started when I was sensible enough. I started to go to Sunday school then. That was in the Untitled Church. And they had two Sunday schools, one on Sunday morning in the church, the second one at a school called Curry School, which was a wee ordinary school. They had it in the afternoon. So that was two Sunday schools I went to each Sunday. That's where I learned a lot, most in the Sunday schools, Good Sunday school teachers I had in those two places. When I was younger, my father brought me to the evening service in the church. Because whenever you were going to church in the morning, you sort of just were in the Sunday school and then you slipped into the church when the time came around. So that was Sunday. So Sunday after Sunday I was a church goer, let's put it that way, from I was a child. So up to the age of, which was about, the age for Life Boys, and the Life Boys, that's the junior section of the Boys Brigade, was in it. And the leader in charge of it used to bring us in a line in the morning and set us in the pews, in the front. The war started when I was 11, and my father joined the army. My father was a lamplighter, and you can know what happens to lamplighters when there was a war on. The lamps weren't lit. It was gas lamps, and he had to walk around twice a day. Once to light them with a stick. You had a big stick. He lit the lamps with those. Then when it came, every day was different. Because the time was different. Some days he went round in at night, switched the lamps off. Then, so that was a daily thing, And he was coming out. He was maybe going out in the summertime, maybe at 10 o'clock at night. To light them. And the winter time he was going away at 4 o'clock. That was the sort of times he had. But going on quickly, when the war came, Sam, he called him Sam. No lamps needed now. All lights out. And so they gave him a job as some sort of a stoking coal thing. Stoking coal down in I know where the gas works is in Belfast there. That's where it used to be. But it wasn't really that he didn't like that. He decided to join the army because he had a job, good job, as a lamplighter. Always counted as good. And he had an idea that if he took up another job during the war, that he wouldn't get that job back again. You see, with him being in the First World War, he didn't want indoors. Because there was one stage during the First World War when there was about 10 of them were buried alive. I don't know why the trenches were down. Well, within the trenches there was what they called dugouts. Big dugout where you went in there. Well, while the shelling was going on, that's only one item. hundreds of things. But while the shelling was on, a shell fell near this, and the whole dugout fell in. There was 10 of them, and they're all buried. So he's buried alive. I think it affected him in his real life, you know. But he said he was at it. He thought, now, I'm a goner. And he felt a wee breath of fresh air, you know, coming in. And now what they call a trenching tool. Pull it out of your back. It's like a wee pick at one end of his shoulder. He says he worked at it, and the air started coming in. Well, there was about 10 in it, but there's only 5 of them alive at the end of that, you know. But that's just one item. But as I say, I'm up now to the second. That was the First World War, by the way. The Second World War, his decision was to join again, you see. Well, the war started on September, and this was about February, and he came into me. I was sitting at the fire, and I see you open fire, it's like a wee house in Belfast, and he says, I'm thinking of joining the army. Oh, it never told me. I thought this was a great idea, you know. It was 11, I was 11, and he told me that he didn't tell me why, but he thought that if he was a lamplighter now, he would get the lamplighter's job after the war was over again, and that would keep him in work, you know. So that was it. He joined the army in the February of 1940. As soon as he couldn't get it, he wanted in an Irish regiment, couldn't get in an Irish regiment. He went to London and got into a regiment, the Royal Fusiliers, which is an English regiment. He got in there, and we assumed you'd get embarkation leave before you went, but no. As soon as he got his training, he went to France. They called it the BEF, British Expeditionary Force. So they were all there. So he's a ground man, the Regiment of Foot, you would call them, First Regiment. It's a well-known regiment, Royal Fusiliers, and so that was France. So he went through the Second World War until France surrendered. But the thing was, he didn't come across the same trouble as he had in the First World War, you know, and so he actually stayed there until he was evacuated from France. Not through Dunkirk, but he was there a fortnight after Dunkirk. He was still there, and he was evacuated from the town of Le Havre. Well, that's the way the English say it, Le Havre, the French say. But as I say, that was him back in England again. So that was the next move. He was billeted then around England in various towns, Sheffield and places like that. And he was then shuttled off to Iceland. So he landed in Iceland. He was in Iceland for 2 years. He kept me right, you know. He didn't. He's pretty soft in a way for being in the army and all that. But he did. He sort of looked after me well, and he was always making me things, toys and all for us. Sometimes he did that, and at Christmas always got something, you know. I mean, I thought it was good at the start, but I missed him, you see. And I used to send him newspapers. Belfast Telegraph had a weekly telegraph, and I used to send them that, you know. And my mother had to just carry on. I don't know how she felt. At my age, 11, I wasn't maybe too worried about what she thought, but she never complained to me or anything like that. But sometimes we were giving her a wee bit of trouble. She was a brother, myself, my brother, my sister. But the brother and me, I don't know whether we fell out with each other or not, but she carried on, you know, just as a Christian person as she was, you know. And sometimes I'd come home from school with a problem at school, you know, and sometimes we were doing handwork in school, we'd have to bring something back, and I would be worrying about, was this all right? No, that's not all right. No. She always said to me, put on with your courage, brother, do not stumble. I was just saying, the thy path be darkened. I remember that saying that. But I didn't think at the time, there was that sort of feeling in the house of happiness, you know. You know what I mean? Always, when my father was there, and even when he was in the army, we had quite calm, you know. You could feel that there was a sort of Christian attitude in the house, you know. I never missed church. That's what that was. From I was away, I never missed church. Sunday after Sunday after Sunday. But then the boys' brigade, when I got out that, well, that was 12 years of age. Went to church. They had a boys' brigade Bible class. You weren't in a boys' brigade now.
No.
Boys' brigade Bible class, and the captain of the company, he gave a wee talk every Sunday, you know. But he used to say, it was just more or less Bible stories he gave, you know. But we all got the message, okay, you know. And it was a very, very big company, you know. And a lot of the boys will still know, you know what I mean. But I wouldn't say that I accepted Christ in those days. It came to me later on, after it came out of the Boys' Brigade. This is not the Newton Abbey Boys' Brigade, the one I was in Belfast, the 15th. I came out of it, and I more or less got the boys that came out the same year were about 18, 19, were teenagers. Well, they got me doing things that I wouldn't have normally done. On my own, I wouldn't have done it. Like they said, to go to a wee dancing class, you know. Well, I went to Renee and went to the dancing class. That was my lifestyle for about a few years, you know. Just going out at night with these boys. Now, I didn't drink, or I didn't smoke. I always thought of my mother and my father when anything cropped up, which I thought it wasn't right. And those two things weren't right, and even girls. But as a thing, they actually, that wore off. I met my wife then, you see, Rosaline, and Rosaline was a Christian. She actually went to Alexandra Presbyterian Church, and they had a Christian Endeavour, and a very good leader in it, I'm told. And her and her brother were saved. So that was that. But as I say, that's when I met her. But the strange thing happened. Rosaline was working in the York Street flax spinning company, and the girl with her, they were doing the wages, you know, in there. The girl with her came from Tyrone, and there was a lot of people from the country came instead of they call digs, you know, here in Belfast. And she stayed in digs in Belfast in the Cliftonville Road. And she said to Rosaline one day, "Oh, will you come with me to the actual dance?" She didn't want to go at all, but she eventually went because the wee girl had nobody at all here. She came with it. And strangely enough, I was at the dance one night. I danced with her, and not the first time, but maybe a few days later, she says to me, my brother says to me, as her brother, he was a Christian, "You shouldn't go there, you know. It's not a very good, nice place for you to go to, you know." Just the story she told me. So I said that was strange. She knew that I didn't drink, and some of the other boys did, because the way it worked was you're in the dance, you get a wee pass out check, go out, and then you're coming in again, you handed that in, you were okay for getting in. But what they did was, some of them, I'm not saying anything about them, were my mates, they went in to maybe a public house and got a few drinks, and then came back in again. They tried to get me to do that, but I didn't do that. And Rosaline, I think, must have noticed that. But she told me the whole story about what her mother said. So the two of us, when I got together with, I really stopped. That's really when I stopped going to the dances, you know, and I started going with Rosaline, you know. But that's only a quick good lot of time would have passed between those two, you know. But whenever I started going with her, we went just walks and things like that, and we went to in the summertime, we got up at Belfast Castle and all that. Used to be a great walk right up Belfast, and there used to be crowds and crowds of young people. See, on a Sunday night up Antrim Road, crowd of young people walking from Dunkirk Gardens right across to maybe nearly as far as Bellevue. But that was girls and boys, all young. But at Fort William, there used to be an open air meeting, which we used to pass by, of course. But that open air meeting, there was young people at it, and at one stage in the meeting, a man spoke, but then people come out from the crowd, and maybe one person come out and recite a Bible verse, you know, something out of the Bible. So that sort of attracted people who were passing by to come, and but I never really stopped at it at any time. But that was the thing that really happened. You don't get open air meetings now, but there was a good lot of open air meetings in those times. But as far as the time limit, the time goes, I couldn't actually say the dates of these things happening. You know, they happened. I should say to my memory. But as I say, that was the breaking point of me breaking away to the dancing, and I didn't smoke anywhere, I didn't drink or anything like that. So and she took me then to the Belfast City Mission, went Collier Avenue at nights. Well, that was a good step for me. And whenever she was Christian, there was a gentleman in there, not the main man, but there was one of the people who attended it. Says to me, "See you're going with Rosalie. She's a Christian. You're not." She said, "No, that's not right. You have to be careful." She said, "You know, the unequal yoke." He started talking about. So that went on. I talked to Rosalie about it, you know, but as I said, it went on, and I was get married actually anyway, you know. Rosalie didn't object to me or anything else, but after I was married, this come down here to live, you see, and I got connected with, it was about a year maybe before I went to Abbots Cross, you know, went to that church, but I met up then with Mr. Holmes, Archie Holmes. I don't know why I hear that name mentioned. Some of the boys would know it, but he was a captain. He started, there was a company here, first Abbots Cross, I think they called it, but it wasn't a very big company. Archie was a good Christian man, and he must have decided in his mind that he was going to get a company, and he actually went round all the houses of the congregation that he knew there was boys in, went to their houses, got the boys out, and he had them coming up to about 100 boys, you know, and he was, we were in the Bible class, he was preaching to the boy. It wasn't really preaching because the PB had a syllabus which he went through, he did it each week. But that was it was just before that I decided that was for me. I shouldn't be doing these things, pretending more or less. I don't know what it was name for it. A form of godliness, let's put that way. Denying the power thereof. So I was actually thinking about that, and I said, ready to go with Archie, and Archie took me in. But so there, and he had already got 4 other men. And so that went with five officers, leader, and I was one of them. So we took it in our turns to actually tell the story, the Bible story, in the Bible class. So that was at that stage that I more or less accepted Christ as my Savior. Because I was actually before this, in the other church, they were keeping at me from to take communion. Well, I wasn't happy with that at all. I was the assistant minister now. I'm not saying the main ministers were the assistant ministers. We not taking communion. I was what he wanted me to do. He didn't ask me any other questions. I says, well, like, I don't think I would be suitable for being, taking communion. I was concerned about that, but eventually did take communion in that church I was at in Yankton, So, but when I came up near the time of taking the boys' brigade job, or becoming an officer in the boys' brigade, I said at that stage, that's where I took the step of accepting Christ. Well, all these houses were built when I came, but there was. Tell you what was green. The road there up from O'Neill Road. See, it was what they call the old Irish Highway up there, and that was a wavy sort of a road. So when it straightened it out, it became another road. It's now O'Neill Road, of course, but down at the bottom of it there was a wee cottage where there was chickens and all running about. At the bottom of the old Irish Highway, and there was there was a lot of different things between the top of the station road there and the next one, Hillview Avenue. There was a row of houses, See that wee bit at the bottom of the hill, the Carmody Hill there, was actually. And originally, not many people would know it, it was originally connected with the Carmody Presbyterian Church. You see, so they agreed, or I wasn't any of it, with any agreement, they agreed that they would allow that Rathfern to become part of our parish. So that's how we got the Rathfern ones. They all were able to come. A good lot of people came from Rathfern in their church, even still, and it was good. And whenever we were in a session at that time, it was bigger. I'm sure 15 maybe in it, I'm not sure. That's only a guess, but there's only 6 men now, you see. But as I say, I went round with Mr. Lennox round the houses. We had a sort of a visitor organisation for going around the house, just visiting, You see, we weren't bothered with coronavirus or anything in those days. We started at first, there was no church hall. The first thing was built was what they call the McGill Hall now, that was called after Harry McGill. So that was it. But see, when it was at first, before the main hall was built, there was a Nissen hut. I know what Nissen hut's like, the use of the army. That was where the Sunday school was, I have a picture in there of it. But the thing is that was where the Sunday school was held. But then, before the church hall was built, we held a Sunday school in the church. Just had the children sitting in the pews, and the teachers in there. Well, I taught in the Sunday school too. That was another thing I hadn't said there. I taught in the Sunday school. Sometimes I had girls. Some of the girls are women now, but. As I say, in the Sunday school class. But what we used to do, they had a syllabus as well in the Sunday school class. But every year, what you were teaching them in the Sunday school, there was a sort of an examination they were put in for. The Sabbath School Society, I think. I don't know who set the questions. But we got on that particular day of the examination, we moved over into Abbots Cross School, and they all took the examination in there to go back on to the boys' brigade. Archie got the boys into organised well and things, and the Bible class was really, that could be the main point of it. But as I say, although it was the BB syllabus, we still used it to get the message to the boys. But then we started up things like a band, I helped him with that because he knew I was a bugler in the other band. See, he came from my old church, Newington too. He was there, so he knew. He asked me to start a bugle band. So I taught the buglers. I was telling you there about the camp. I went to one of the camps. We went to Millport. That's the wee island of Scotland, and there was about 100 boys there, plus the officers. And they see that day, that year, I did it. It was Archie and a couple of the other officers were more involved in it than I was. But there were boys actually had a wee meeting at night maybe before we went to bed. Boys coming forward, and there was one year that was the whole week. There was about 40 boys actually came forward to seek the Lord. That was out of 100, you know. But that was a terrific thing. That particular year, I'm not sure the years and the dates, I couldn't remember, because when I started, I have the actual membership card. It stated 1968, so that must have been just when I started. So I have it in my pocket, and I have a list of all the leaders and all the boys, every squad.